Welcome to the channel, welcome to my review slash reveal slash showcase of Codex supplement Raven Guard, which is up for pre-order now, and you can buy it from Games Workshop from the 21st of September. This is a supplement for your Codex Space Marine. So if you've got Raven Guard, you don't need to get this book, but you're gonna wanna, or if you want to run a Raven Guard successor chapter, then you're gonna want this book. Now, off the bat, it doesn't seem as great as the Iron Hands one, because the Raven Guard extra ability for the Sons of Corax is called Surgical Strikes. When the tactical doctrine is active, only when the tactical doctrine is active, when resolving an attack made by a model with this ability against a character, you can add 1 to hit and wound rolls. That Surgical Strike, you add it on top of the Raven Guard Shadow Master's rule from the main Space Marine Codex, which means you get cover if you're more than 12 inches away. And if you're not a vehicle and you're entirely within a terrain piece and more than 12 inches away, you also subtract 1 from the hit roll. So the main Raven Guard ability is very good. Minuses to the hit roll and cover more than 12 inches away. It's very good. And adding something powerful on top, like the Iron Hands one is very powerful on top, might make the Raven Guard all of a sudden very broken. But adding 1 to the hit rolls and adding 1 to wound rolls when you target characters doesn't seem that great off the bat. But this codex is all about redeploying and striking from the shadows. Raven Guard Codex supplement is the now you see me, now you don't supplement. There's lots and lots of shenanigans going on in here. So how about this Warlord trait, Master of Ambush, at the start of the first battle round but before the first turn begins. So after you know who's going first or second, say you've got first turn, you can pick up your Warlord and a Raven Guard infantry unit and place them anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from the enemy deployment zone. So say for example you pick up your Captain and place them 9 inches away from the enemy deployment zone with a unit of 10 Hellblasters. Suddenly in rapid fire range right in front of the enemy lines. Or you can spend a command point on infiltrators. Use this stratagem at the start of the first battle round before the first turn begins, so you know who's going first. Select a Raven Guard infantry unit from your army that's on the battlefield, and you can move them so long as you don't end up within 9 inches of enemy models. So jump pack stern guard guys, vanguard guys, moving forward 12 inches and advancing, and then you plonk them down before the first battle round, and suddenly you've got a guaranteed first turn charge with your Raven Guard, Stern Guard, Vanguard with all their claws and things like that. Suddenly there's 2 units right in front of your enemy's deployment zone, and then the first battle round begins, and then you can move and shoot. Or Shadow Step, which is an Umbra mansi discipline, and it's a warp charge value of 7, and you select a Raven Guard character and you pick it up and you put it more than 9 inches away from enemy models. Maybe not a guaranteed first turn charge, but suddenly with these psychic powers and these stratagems and the Warlord traits, you have 4 units within 9 inches of the enemy line before you start shooting at them. Say you want to hold some units in reserve for 1 command point, strike from the shadows. Pick a Raven Guard infantry unit from your army during deployment. So because it's during deployment, you could spend this 3 times. You could pick 3 Raven Guard infantry units. That rule that stops you using stratagems, only 1 stratagem per turn, that only counts during the game turns. This is during deployment. You select a Raven Guard infantry unit. And what happens is these guys come on from reserve anywhere on the battlefield. It doesn't have to be the edge. Anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from enemy models in turn 2 or turn 3. So there's lots of sneaky ways for the Raven Guard to sneak around the battlefield and be sneaky. That's just some of them. Let's go through the other stratagems as well, because some of these are really good. The Raven's Blade costs a command point, and you use this stratagem at the start of your charge phase. You select an enemy unit. Until the end of that phase, the charge phase, when a charge roll is made for a Raven Guard unit from your army, you can re-roll the dice if that enemy unit was the only selected target of that charge. So re-roll charges versus an enemy unit doesn't sound great, but it doesn't pin it down to just 1 unit. Say you've got 2 dreadnoughts, or say you've got 2 dreadnoughts and some terminators, and you want to charge a unit. You can spend 1 command point, and everything that charges that a unit, single unit, will re-roll the charge rolls, so long as they only select that unit. That one's pretty pokey. Stranglehold. Use the stratagem in the first battle round before the first turn begins. If you've got scouts or phobos units, until the end of the battle round you can roll 1d6 each time your opponent spends a command point to use a stratagem in the first battle round. And on a 5-up, your opponent has to spend an additional command point each time they want to spend a stratagem in the first turn. It's a 1/3 chance, it's a 5-up, and it only lasts in turn 1. And if they don't spend those, or else the stratagem has no effect and cannot be used this phase. So they have to spend that money. They have to spend the command points, or they don't get to use it that phase. So you have to use it at the start of the battle round before your opponent has chosen to spend any command points. It will last until the end of that first battle round. So your opponent will have some difficult decisions to make. There are some things in his pocket that he probably wants to do in turn 1. Lots of people like spending 3 or 4 command points in turn 1. It costs you 2 command points. Only on a 5-up makes them spend additional command points. Don't know how useful it'll be. Against command point hungry lists, people that bring brigades with 15 command points, things like this, you're going to see this used quite a bit. False flight, 2 command points. When a Raven Guard unit from your army falls back, they can shoot and charge. No negatives to hit. They can just fall back, 2 command points, and shoot and charge again. And charging again is very useful with Shock Assault. Lay low the tyrants. When a Raven Guard infantry unit or biker unit from your army is chosen to fight in the fight phase, until the end of the phase, when resolving an attack made by a model in that unit against a character that is not a vehicle, against a unit that is not a vehicle, and contains enemy models with wounds characteristics of 4 or more, you add 1 to the rune roll. Basically, not Death to the False Emperor. What's the other one? Veterans of the Long War. It's Veterans of the Long War versus characters. You add 1 to the wound rolls, and remember already their stack is add 1 to hit and to wound rolls. So if you play this one, Lay Low the Tyrants, you'll be adding 1 to hit rolls versus characters and adding 2 to the wound rolls versus characters that are not vehicles. And it's only a command point. That one's quite nice. See but remain unseen. Use the stratagem at the end of your turn. Select a Raven Guard unit from your army that did not make any attacks, and any hit rolls against that unit subtract 1 to the hit roll. So you've got a unit in cover somewhere, say there's only 2 or 3 guys left alive and they're snuggling down on an objective. It'll be -1 to hit them if they didn't make any attacks. If that unit is more than 12 inches away, it will stack with Shadow Masters from the Raven Guard, making that unit -2 to hit. It's only 1 command point. You can't do anything with the unit that's hiding in cover there. But having -2 to hit on a unit that is desperately holding on to 1 objective for you, that could be something that wins you the game. It's only a command point. I quite like it as well. See, strike from the shadows. See but remain unseen. You can see them, but they aren't doing anything. They're just lurking in there. There's a Vengeance for Istam 5, which works against Word Bearers, Iron Warriors, Night Lords, and Alpha Legion. There's Ambushing Fire. Use this stratagem at the start of your movement phase if the tactical doctrine is active, and until the next battle round, when resolving an attack made with a rapid fire or assault weapon by a Raven Guard model from your army. On a modified wound roll of 6, the armor characteristic of that weapon is improved by an additional 1. So for 2 command points, your auto bolt rifles, when the tactical doctrine is in effect, instead of being AP -2, become AP -3. That's crazy good. Decapitating Blow, 2 command points. Use this stratagem when an enemy Warlord is destroyed, made by an attack with a Raven Guard unit from your army, and until the end of the battle, subtract 1 from the leadership of all enemy units. It's very situational, 2 command points. But that could be pretty brutal against low leadership armies like Tau or Guard. -1 to their whole leadership. That could be good. A Deadly Prize. Use this stratagem at the end of your turn. Select 1 objective marker that is within 3 inches of a Raven Guard infantry unit from your army and not within 3 inches of an enemy unit. The next time an enemy unit ends within 3 inches of that objective marker, roll a d6. And on a 2 to 4, they suffer d3 mortal wounds. And on a 5+, they suffer 3 mortal wounds. You cannot use this stratagem on the same objective marker more than once, but it's only 1 command point. And you could booby trap these objectives. You could booby trap one in one turn, booby trap one in another turn to do 3 mortal wounds to your enemy as soon as they move onto that objective, because they're going to want to move on to objectives because they're objectives. Force their hand costs 1 command point. Use the stratagem after your opponent generates tactical objectives at the start of their turn. Select one objective in your opponent's deployment zone, one objective marker in your opponent's deployment zone. If you control that objective marker and there are any Raven Guard infantry or Raven Guard biker units from your army within 3 inches of that objective marker, you can select one of your opponent's tactical objectives. That tactical objective is discarded and your opponent generates a new tactical objective. You can only use this stratagem once per turn, and only if the mission you're playing uses tactical objectives, and it costs a command point and it's very situational. It will come up very rarely. Strike from the Sky is 1 command point. Basically, at the started charge phase, you select a jump pack unit, and until the end of that phase, that unit can be chosen to charge with even if it advanced this turn. And when you charge, add 1 to the result. I think what you've got here is a codex that really is going to value those Vanguard units, particularly with claws. You've got jump pack units here that can re-roll to the charge and add 1 to the result. You've got a stratagem called Infiltrators, where a Raven Guard infantry unit can be picked up and placed 9 inches away from the, or can move if it was your movement phase, so long as it doesn't end up within 9 inches of the enemy. If you've got a couple of squads with lightning claws or thunderhammer lightning claws, then the Raven Guard book, these stratagems are going to help you out, which is a bit weird because their other thing is staying back and hiding in shadows and taking the stuff in the backfield will get their cover saves, and the stuff in the backfield will be minuses to hit, but the speed and the outflankability, that's the word now, for the Vanguard units or Terminator units, and there's some interesting things in here. Master of the Trifold Path for 1 command point. Nominate a Raven Guard character model that is not a named character to be your Warlord. So basically you can generate an additional Warlord trait. We've seen this in the other Space Marine books. You can give a Warlord trait to your Warlord, and for a command point you can give a Warlord trait to another dude. And there's a command point stratagem which allows you to give special issue war gear relics to sergeants, and a command point that allows you to give you special issue war gear relics to other Raven Guard characters, and that is their stratagems, but it's their Warlord traits that are particularly strong. Shadow Master, enemy units can't fire Overwatch at your Warlord. Master of Ambush, we already talked about, pick up your Warlord in another unit and deploy it. Swift and Deadly, friendly Raven Guard units within 6 inches of this Warlord can be chosen to charge even if they advance this turn. So again, talking about jumpy dudes coming in, talking about aggressors coming in with Flamestorm gauntlets, moving, advancing, shooting with their Flamestorm gauntlets, charging, talking about Vanguard veterans with claws or thunderhammers or shields, moving, advancing and charging. It's a 6 inch or above. Even Dreadnoughts, this is a Raven Guard unit within 6 inches of this Warlord. You could have Dreadnoughts and decide to keep them cheap and just decide to move them and advance them and charge with your Warlord. Not that anyone does that, but it's an interesting idea. Swift and Deadly, there's some interesting combos in here, and I'm sure some Sons of Corax out there will be able to make this book sing, because it makes my brain itch a little bit when I start thinking about some of the possible combos in here. Master of Vigilance, when resolving attack made with a melee weapon by this Warlord and on a modified hit roll of 6, inflicts a mortal wound in addition to any other damage. Feigned Flight. When this Warlord falls back, they can move across other models and terrain features as if they weren't there. But this Warlord can also shoot and charge in the turn they fell back. Again, another good Smash Captain one. You smash in, you hit with your Storm Shield, keeps you safe. And then in your turn you fall back and charge again with Shock Assault. And Echo of the Ravenspire, this one's really nice and fluffy. Once per battle, it's only once per battle. You can pick your Warlord up if they're more than 6 inches away from enemy models. And then at the end of your next movement phase, you can put them back down again anywhere on the table more than 9 inches away from the enemy. So just by looking at the stratagems and Warlord traits, you can get what the designers were trying to achieve here. And it matches with the Raven Guard narrative, which is there's lots of tools in here which allow you to redeploy. or move very quickly across the battlefield, or sneak around in the backfield. There's even stratagems here where you can put stuff in reserve and then strike from the shadows by popping up on the battlefield 9 inches away from your enemy. There's lots of movement shenanigans in this book. There's a new psychic tree called the Umbra mansi discipline, which you can take for your librarians if you want to. You can pick from here. We talked about one of them already, which is picking up a character 18 inches away from your warlord, warp charge value of 7, you pick it up and you move it 9 inches away from the enemy. That's called Shadow Step. Here are the other 5. Umbral Form, warp charge value of 5. If manifested until the start of your next psychic phase, the psyker is a 4-up invulnerable save. That's actually quite useful because there aren't very many things in any of the Space Marine books. I think I can only recall one that actually gives your librarian a 4-up invulnerable save. I think there's the Gorgon's Chain that you can take in Iron Hands, or maybe a Relic, which you could put on your librarian to give it, or a Terminator armor save, obviously. But it's difficult to find ways to give your librarian a 4-up invulnerable save, and this is one that you can do, just for a warp charge value of 5. Give it a 4-up invulnerable save. It's interesting. You can also make your librarian very smashy with the Spectral Blade. That's also a warp charge value of 5. And the Psyker Strength characteristic becomes equal to their leadership characteristic. Now, Psyker's strength, leadership typically is 9. So you're looking at a strength 9 Psyker. That's crazy. And then you add +1 for a force. I mean, with a sword, it would be just no pluses. It will be strength 9. But if you've got a force stave or a warding stave or something like that, then you're looking at a strength 10, strength 11 Psyker. That's nice. And also, when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by the Psyker against a unit whose highest leadership characteristic is lower than the Psyker, that weapon has an armor penetration characteristic of AP -4 for the attack. Now, there's not a lot of things out there with leadership 9. Knights are, unfortunately. I did double check, but it would have been nice if the leadership would have been high enough so that when this Psyker at strength 9, strength 10 is hitting knights at AP -4, that would have been nice. But it's not against knights unless you can find a way to nerf knights leadership down to 8. And then when you hit the knight, you'll be hitting at strength 9, strength 10. At AP -4, it won't be getting a save, and you've got a force stave or force axe doing D3 wounds. Anyway, that's not the best psychic power. The best psychic power is this one, Enveloping Darkness. It's a warp charge value of 7, and it should be, and it's 18-inch range. You pick an enemy unit that's visible to the Psyker. That unit can't fire Overwatch. Can't fire Overwatch. Remember the Smash Captain ability as well, where you can't fire Overwatch at him. Pick another unit, 7, warp charge value of 7, no Overwatch. And when resolving an attack made by that unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. That will last until the next psychic phase. You don't even have to charge that unit. Just pick an enemy unit within 18 inches and go bam. Warp charge value of 7. Now you've got -1 to hit. That's a nice ability. We've got the Abyss. The Abyss is a warp charge value of 6. You pick an enemy unit within 18 inches of the Psyker and roll 3d6. And on 4s, that unit suffers a mortal wound. So a chance to do 0 or up to 3 mortal wounds, you've got to roll a 4+ on each of those dice. So you need a 4 3 times on those d6s to do 3 mortal wounds. So not as good as Smite, but if any models in that unit are destroyed as a result of this psychic power, they subtract 1 from their leadership characteristics until the end of the turn. So it's a way to buff their leadership, hit their leadership, but you're probably just going to smite them, let's put it that way. The Darkness Within has a warp charge value of 6. This is the last psychic power, and you select up to 3 enemy units within 18 inches of the Psyker. And you can do a mortal wound to each of those units so long as you roll a 4+ on a d6. So a way to do a mortal wound here, mortal wound there, mortal wound there. But you need a 4-up on a d6, and they all have to be within 18 inches of the Psyker. Again, you're probably going to do Smite. So a couple of powers in the Umbromancy discipline are not great, but Enveloping Darkness, being able to put a -1 to hit on an enemy unit, that one's quite nice. And of course you're shutting that enemy unit down from firing Overwatch as well, which is doubly nice if you're playing against Tau. Right, there's Special Issue War Gear and Relics of the Ravenspire in here. This works like the other supplements. Basically, to get the Relics of the Ravenspire, you need to be Raven Guard. You can have access to the Relics in the special issue War Gear if you're Raven Guard. If you're not Raven Guard and you're a Raven Guard successor, you only get access to the special issue War Gear unless you spend a command point, and then you can unlock the Relics of the Ravenspire as well. So nothing is hidden from you if you're a successor. And in the special issue War Gear, there's the 4 that we've seen in all the other ones: the Adamantium Mantle, the Artificer Armor, the Mastercrafted Weapon, and the Digital Weapons. Adamantium Mantle, it seems like these 4 are going to appear in all the supplements. It seems that way. And the Adamantium Mantle is a 5-up Feel No Pain. Artificer Armor is a 2-up Armor save and a 5-up Invulnerable save. Mastercrafted Weapons is you pick a weapon, add 1 to the damage roll. Digital Weapons are you pick a melee weapon, you can add 1 attack from that weapon. So a Power Fist that hits 3 times instead of twice, or a Thunder Hammer on your Jump Captain that gives him an extra attack, for example. The other 4 new ones in the special issue War Gear are the Shadow Master's Cloak, and a model with this relic is a 3-up Invulnerable save while they're wholly on or in a terrain feature. That's pretty good, because essentially it's a Storm Shield if you're in terrain and you don't have to spend the points for it, because it's a relic. The Silentus Pistol is a pistol 2. It replaces a bolt pistol or heavy bolt pistol. It's a pistol 2 at strength 5, -2, 2 damage, and you can target characters with it. And if you target characters, you add 1 to the hit roll with it. Doesn't sound great, but a strength 5 -2, 2 damage pistol at 12-inch range that can pick on characters. And remember, you can use it in close combat as well if that character isn't dead and you're still locked up. So that is actually quite an interesting relic, particularly for a Jump Captain. The Corvadari Bolts. When you give a model this relic, select a bolt weapon. When that model is chosen to shoot, you can choose for that weapon to fire a Corvadari Bolt instead. And when you do so, when choosing targets for that model and when choosing range weapons, the weapon's range characteristics increase by 6. And it can target units that are not visible to the bearer, but only 1 attack can be made with this weapon. So you can put this on a bolt weapon and curve bullets, bend them round corners. Shard of Istvan. Add 1 to the attacks characteristics of a model with this relic. In addition, when a morale test is taken for a chapter unit, any chapter unit within 6 inches of a friendly model with this relic, don't roll the dice. It's automatically passed. +1 attack and a 6-inch aura, Fearless Aura. I like it. I like the way it says chapter as well. Not just Raven Guard, but just chapter, because it is a Shard of Istvan after all. But is that Istvan 3 or Istvan 5? I guess Istvan 3 has been stricken from the Imperial records, so it must be Istvan 5, eh? Right, the Relics of the Ravenspire. There's 3 beefed weapons in here. The first one is the Ebon Claws, and it's for a model equipped with 2 Lightning Claws only. Strength user, -3 AP, D3 damage. Lightning Claws are normally -2 and normally 1 damage. You're looking at -3 and D3 damage, and you can make an additional attack and you re-roll wound rolls, just like Lightning Claws. If you have a pair of Lightning Claws, normally you make an additional attack and re-roll wound rolls, but instead of -2 and 1 damage, this is -3 and D3 damage, so that's nice. You've got Ex Tenebris for models equipped with Mastercrafted Stalker bolt rifles or bolt carbines or Instigator, basically sniper stuff. If you've got a model with a sniper weaponry, you can change it for this and it becomes Assault 3, so you can move and shoot it. At strength 4, -2, 2 damage, and you can target characters. Then there's the Oppressor's End combat knife. You swap out a combat knife for the Oppressor's End, but it is strength +1, -2 AP, 1 damage, and you can make an additional attack with this weapon. And if you target a character with this weapon, the damage characteristic is 3. So say your sergeant uses this, say your smash captain decides to use this when it hits a character. He's been jumping around the battle grid all day long trying to find that pesky character. His Thunderhammer and Storm Shield have been keeping him safe, and he's got the Oppressor's End, this knife, tucked in his boot. And he comes across the character. and he leaps upon him from high. Well, instead of his base 4 attacks, 5 attacks with Shock Assault, you get him to use the Oppressor's End. That's 6 attacks. So he'll have 6 attacks. He's a captain. He'll be hitting on 2s. And remember, you can add 1 to the hit rolls and add 1 to the wound rolls when you target characters because you're a Raven Guard. So you're hitting on 2s, you're strength 5, and you're adding 1 to the wound rolls. At AP -2 and a flat 3 damage, you're killing characters. You're easily killing characters with the Oppressor's End. Now that's the Relics of the Ravenspire. That's their special issue war gear. Those are the stratagems, warlord traits, and psychic powers. It's a sneaky book. It's a book that I'm going to have to sit down and look through again and think about because it's a Raven Guard book. There's lots of different ways you can jump around and do stuff in here. It's not as outright strong as the Iron Hand supplement. The Iron Hand supplement, the Iron Hands one kicks in as soon as the Devastator Doctrine is in effect. So it kicks in turn 1 and it makes las cannons more powerful. And who doesn't like las cannons? This one's a bit more sneaky, but it's still a good book and it's still something that, if I was I would get this book. If I was a Raven Guard successor, or if I played the Raven Guard, I would get this book because just that Envelop in Darkness, Umbra, mansi discipline is good. Some of the stratagems in here, I've always said, one of my gripes is, why can't we reserve more units? Like in all the previous editions, 8th edition, the only things you can stick in reserve, it has to say it on the data sheets, like Terminators and Drop Pods and things like that. But in this one, strike from the shadows, pick a Raven Guard infantry unit and just leave it off and bring it in turn 2 anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from an enemy model. And because it happens during deployment, you can pick 2 units. That's good. And the stratagem which allows you to pick up your Warlord and a unit and move it across the battlefield. That's good. There are some deployment and movement options here. And often in games of 40k, it's movement that'll win you the day. So long as you're playing on large line of sight blocking terrain pieces of table, don't play in a shooting gallery. Play with towers and bits and rocks all over the place which allow you to hide units behind. This should be a mobile game. There should always be 1 or 2 very large things in the middle of the table which gives you and your opponent some decisions. Do I go right? Do I go left? Do I try and sneak around this way? It makes it a more mobile, more tactical game. And if you're playing with lots of line of sight blocking, as you should be, then the Raven Guard book will really help you out. So I think I'm going to wrap this up there. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and all those other things. You can join us in Patreon. Join our thriving deploymentzone.tv community. Check Patreon, DZTV, literally DZTV. You can join us in the Deployment Zone on deploymentzone.tv. Search for that on Google, and there's more Winter's SEO battle reports and campaigns and narratives. And anyway, I'm going to be in the DZTV community all this next week, answering questions. Come and join us there. Thank you to everyone who's already subscribed to Deployment Zone and joined us as patrons. You guys are legend. Thank you to my regular patrons who've been with me for a long time. We are moving across. I'm sure you're aware we're moving across to the DZTV patron, and my individual patron and Liam's will be shut down in a couple of months' time. We're consolidating positions, falling back, rearming, regrouping. So, thank you for listening. Thank you to Games Workshop for sending this through to me. Happy wargaming.